Welcome to Schmidt List, where technology meets tenacity, hosted by Kurt Schmidt. As a professional business coach, best-selling author, and former BMX pro, Kurt brings you closer to the pioneers at the forefront of innovation. Every week, we dive into the minds of tech leaders and creative thinkers. Ready for a dose of inspiration? Let's get started.
Okay. Well, welcome to Schmidt List. This will be episode 255 of the show. And Zach, if people who don't know, who were listening maybe 6 years ago, Zach was my very first guest on the show. Yep, he was. I conned him into coming to my house in Richfield, into my spare bedroom that had a couple of microphones sitting on a desk. And he's a great sport, and we had a good time, and we are reunited. We're reunited here. So, Zach, you work for a company called CHS. I've never heard of this place. What are they? Apparently, it's a very large company. A lot of people don't. It's a sleeping giant, some say. What is CHS, and what do you do there?
CHS, we work for farmers. So we are a farmer-owned cooperative. And that can seem small from the standpoint of giving farmers what they need to grow crops, giving farmers what they need to bring crops to market. But when you look across and see, 600,000 farmers across America, and what do all of them need? They need global access to products. They need global access to energy, and they need to be able to access the global markets of who is kind of consuming the food products of America. So as you drive across the fields of Minnesota or anywhere else across the Midwest, and you see these, rows of corn and soybeans and things like that, you're like, we're feeding America. Correction, we're feeding the world. And we help make those connections. So my role in that, and more importantly, my team's role in that, is digitizing all of that supply chain. It's a big task. And we can all think about ways in which digital technology has changed our lives, whether we listen to music or we buy things online. That's all fine and good. A lot of that has not yet happened fully to the world of agriculture. So we are bringing the digital supply chain to bear in agriculture, and we do that every day.
Yeah. So when you were coming up, obviously working in technology, there's a lot of, I'd say, stereotypes that come with that, right? Which is like, well, I've got to get good at programming. I've got to get good at coding. I've got to get good at design. What skill sets have you found the most important for early stage technologists to focus on?
So I think it's something you're interested in and you like is key. For me, it was computer networking. I had an opportunity around that. I liked fixing computers, and I felt like I could do that. I was never a coder early on, though I dabbled in it from time to time. But I just thought I'm the guy that people go to when their computers break, and I seem to be able to fix it better than they can. So that was kind of it for me. And the reason why I kind of put it that way is there was a kind of a intrinsic reward cycle that kind of went along with that. It felt good to help people with the skills. That was what was easy for me was hard for them. What I could put a little effort into would make their day. And this is just something I could do repeatedly, and I got a lot of joy out of. So that was so having some technical skill of some kind, pick something that you think is good. But I'll say that's not always what differentiates you in the marketplace. What I hear a lot from my managers, the leaders on my team, in terms of when they talk about early career talents, like what makes them stick out. Sometimes they'll use words like, well, they got a great attitude or something like that. And that sounds really soft and squishy, and that can sound like not a skill, like more like a personality. But I want to kind of like drill into that just for a minute, because I think it is something worth focusing on. What differentiates, early career talent, I'd say, to kind of break that attitude down one layer deeper is a little bit of confidence and a little bit of humility. And those sound like opposites, but they actually work really well together. First, confidence. Anybody in this room that's in their early career, probably suffers from impostor syndrome and think, what happens when they find out they don't know what I'm doing? Right?
I still worry about that.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, it doesn't really go away.
I know you wish it would. I wish it would too. You just end up doing harder things and still carry that with you.
So you have to develop, I think it's a skill, to develop the ability to muster confidence, find a source of confidence, be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to do this. And as much as I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, everybody else feels the same way. But I'm going to, for the sake of my customers, for the sake of people I'm trying to serve and help with my skills, I'm going to pull myself by my bootstraps. I'm gonna give it my all today. That kind of go-getter, driven attitude makes a huge difference. Overcoming that negative self-talk, and turning that into something positive. That's a skill. And you can work at it and get better at it. So that's why I think of it as a skill. The second thing that kind of goes along with that, and may seem like the inverse, is humility. And what I mean by that is kind of the willingness to be dumb again, the willingness to continue to learn new things. You all chosen to enter the world of technology, and that world of technology is going to keep on changing. And the stuff that you know how to do is going to be obsolete real soon, a lot sooner than you wish it was. So to put yourself in a position where you're able to continue to crave and learn new experiences, put yourself in situations where you don't always know the answer, but you're willing to kind of figure it out and work through it. That's humility. And that really comes to bear and separates people.
Yeah, I like that because for me, as I was coming up in my career, I found out that when you did a really good job, a lot of times you get to do other people's jobs for them. And that's when I knew this is something I'm probably good at. And I also found that those skill sets of being able to have buy-in to your ideas. So when you go into a meeting or a team and you'd say, I think we should do it this way. And the team's like, yeah, okay, let's try Kurt's way or something. That skill set was huge, especially when you're working in a technology that changes so much. Some people say, well, it's soft skills and things, but I don't know why they call them soft skills when they're usually the hardest to actually achieve, right?
Indeed.
So, I think what Zach is saying here to me was critical in my career, was being able to, you're never going to work not on a team. It's very rare that you have like a solo project when you're working in tech, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, you especially with the size of the groups that you work with, is there anybody on your team right now that's kind of like low ranger?
They don't exist.
No.
Well, if you think about it, the whole reason to kind of join a company is to do things you can't do on your own. If you could do this on your own, you do it in your garage and you have fun with that. Kind of the art of joining a corporation and the art of leadership is to say, I bet if we all join forces, we can do something really big and really cool, and we all get to share in that. So yeah, all of technology, as far as I'm concerned, is a team sport.
Yeah, because I mean, learning Python, I can learn that. If I spend enough time, I take enough courses, I can learn that. But being able to convince somebody that the experiment that I want to try, that they're uncomfortable with, is a safe experiment to try, and is a skill set, right?
Absolutely. There's we'll probably talk about this a few times, but I think at least I knew myself. I thought, I know I'm going to go into computers because I hate selling things. I don't want to have to sell anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds terrible. I don't want to be a salesperson, so I'm going to go into technology. Boy, did I... that was short lived.
Backfire.
So, yeah, there's a little bit of salesmanship involved in the art of persuasion, whether you're selling ideas or anything else. So,
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that that skill set of being able to on how to communicate ideas that you have is really important, especially if you want to move things forward. If you versus the status quo. So speaking of status quo, I want to ask you about mentorship. So as I was growing up, I had mentors, but we didn't. I don't think we actually like put a label on them, like a sticker on them, like you're a mentor. Did you have mentorship? How did it grow and work for you as you were coming up in your career?
Yeah, similar story there. We didn't use that label or that term. There wasn't a mentorships program that I could sign on for and do that. There's a lot of those programs today. I participate as a mentor in various programs of that nature, and it's wonderful. And I think we should do more of that. But kind of lack of a kind of formal program doesn't mean I wasn't mentored. Doesn't mean I didn't have those opportunities and didn't seek those opportunities. And I'll kind of share my secret, and probably the biggest impact for me there was a built-in mentoring relationship can be, should you choose it, is your boss. And I hit the gold mine with that in my early career. I got to work for some incredible leaders that I genuinely wanted to be like. That's key. And think about all the bosses you've had in your life, whether it be working at a fast food restaurant or any bosses you've had. It's like, can you check that box? Wow, I really want to be like her. I want to be like him. That's if you could say yes, count yourself real fortunate. But I think that's also something for those of you that are job seeking to be looking for. It's like, when you're they're interviewing you be interviewing them. Say like, does this person look happy? They look like they enjoy what they're doing. Could I see myself being them in 5 years?
That's a question I would always ask in interviews. What do you like about working here?
Yeah,
when I was on the other side of the table, right, hear what they had to say.
Totally. So maybe I was good at asking those questions. I can't remember, but I still just count myself fortunate that I end up working for people that I wanted to be like, and we had this intrinsic coaching relationship where it wasn't a matter of just telling me exactly what to do. There's some aspect of that, of course, but it was a matter of, I'm stuck. Help me get unstuck. Point me in the right direction. How do I handle this situation? So,
well, and I think it's you have to make yourself available for mentorship too, because it's usually the mentor chooses the mentee. That's how it goes. You can go and obviously ask people for specific mentorship, right? Mm-hmm. But you've got to kind of make yourself. You got to present yourself to that mentor and be like, these are the things I'm looking for help in, and being honest and accurate about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and like I said, I don't think I approached a whole lot of people. It's like, will you be my mentor? Yeah, that can seem a little. Like, what does that mean?
Down on one knee, or
exactly. Got a proposal for you.
Yes, exactly.
It's hey, can we go out to lunch? I want to pick your brain. Let's go grab some coffee. I want to talk to you about something. It's been bugging me. I think some of the most impactful mentors I had early on weren't the VPs, weren't the executive leaders, weren't the CIOs. I couldn't talk to those people anyway. They didn't know my name. Mm-hmm. It was the people that were a couple of steps ahead of me.
Yeah.
And just getting to know them and I guess making myself teachable and respectful of that individual made them more likely to want to pour into me. So
yeah, it's incredibly important, because I received so much mentorship from not even my direct bosses. Sometimes it was adjacent roles, like the top salespeople or marketing people, or because what I was doing was not only learning about the different ways that they were working, but how the business works, right? I know so many people that are at a company and they don't know how the place make money. Like, that's a problem. You should know how the place make money. And then find the people that are responsible for that money-making part of it and learn. I understand you're interested in technology and you're not interested in sales, but you should have an idea of what the efforts you're doing and what that turns into, what that feeds, because it'll help you make better decisions in the micro as you're going about your day, and you'll be much happier with your job, and your boss will be too. But honestly, like, I'll be honest, I've learned a lot from really bad leaders. Like, so if I have, let's say I don't feel that safe, Zach, with my immediate, the person I'm directly reporting to, but I like the company, I like what's going on, but I'm craving that mentorship. What advice would you have for me?
Yeah, that can happen. And, we'll talk probably about networking and things like that later on. That's not always at events like this or out in the public. If your company's big enough where it's like there's more than one department or more than one team, angling for new opportunity within your company is totally fair. And especially if you like the company overall, you believe in the mission and things like that. Yeah, you could be just in a bad spot or in a spot where you're just, there's no growth opportunity. You might even, so maybe you might like your boss, but there's like, there's no growth opportunity in that area. Plateaued, you've kind of achieved, you topped out. Like, where else can I go and still, keep my company badge and achieve my career objectives? So yes, I highly encourage kind of, you get to know your boss's peers, and talking to them, to varying degrees. They may want to pour into you or not, and you just kind of keep knocking on doors and seeing what pops.
No, I agree. That was key for me. Was early on, I kept my head down. And I kept focused on the lane I was in. But as I was growing and looking for more education, more mentorship, I started reaching out to the sales team or the other folks and asked them, how do you do your job? How do you get your job done? And how does my job affect your job? And what could we be doing better to make your job easier? And they love those conversations when you bring that up.
I got a funny story about that.
Oh, please.
So, I would say I started on the help desk, but that actually isn't true. I stopped. My first job was like even less glorious than that. But so my first corporate job, my first real job was wearing a headset, answering support calls, and telling people to reboot. And I thought to myself, okay, I can only do this for so long. I want to do a really good job. So my next potential opportunity would be to kind of move to level 2, right? Kind of work on the teams that you are escalating tickets towards. And I thought to myself, like, every ticket I make and escalate, I don't solve, is like a little mini interview. Because I knew, like, all the teams, they know the techs, and then I get good tickets from him, I get bad tickets from him, I get excellent tickets from her. They know y'all. So I'm giving them really well articulated, well defined tickets that have good explanations of them and error messages and traces and other things like that I'm escalating. So I apply for this job on one of these teams, and I end up getting the job. And then when on my first day in that new role, I opened up my ticket queue and I saw a month's worth of tickets that I had escalated to that team that hadn't had anything done with them. You had done this to yourself, and it was kind of funny because, like, the team's like, oh yeah, we're opening up a new rack, we'll get this new guy to do tickets, so they all just stopped working them. And then I got there, and I got in my first couple days and weeks on the job was calling a bunch of angry people that I had spoken to a month ago. That's a great startup. I love that. Yeah, similarly, I found myself as I was early on in my career, I had this boss that was a little, how do I put it, I don't know, scatterbrained, but they were really busy. They're busy people, right? But I was directly reporting to them, and they were busy all the time. So I always felt bad, like, even bothering them, right? And I remember going to them and being like, hey, we just finished this big thing, and really like some feedback on how did we do, and they're like, sounds great. You did a great job. And, poof, they're off, and
I remember like at the time being like, oh man, like I'm not doing a good job. Like no matter you just said good job, but I don't believe you. And I remember like this is earlier on when my dad was still with us. He told me, he's like, well, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't ask for feedback. And I was like, well, what are we going to ask for? He's like, well, ask for advice. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, just go and ask him, what would you do in this situation? And I remember that boss going in, it was like couple months later, and they were busy, and stuff's flying around. It's very bossy office, like very, you get the picture in your mind, right? The whiteboards and crazy walls with yarn attached to mugshots and whatever, server racks. And so I said to I said, we finished this big project and whatever. And he's like, yeah, I heard it went really good. I was like, yeah, what advice would you have for me what would you do differently next time on something like this? And then everything stopped. He totally stopped. His whole body posture changed, and he sat down and we talked for an hour. It was amazing.
Nice.
It was huge for me. And since then, I realized like that is what I want. That's what my father was telling me. You don't want feedback. You want advice. You want, what would you do differently? Now, don't get me wrong. I know some people are going to be like, well, you shouldn't take all the advice. I'm talking about solicited advice here. Okay. Yes. Unsolicited advice, take it or leave it, right? That's fine. But when you're going in directly and you're trying to work with someone who could be a mentor or has the potential for mentorship, or, asking them, how would you approach this? How would you do this? Versus, hey, could you tell me what I could have done better? Like nobody wants to do that, right?
Yeah. That reminds me of a brilliant, post you made on one of those contribution articles.
Oh yeah. That's
tell the story.
Well, I've been telling this story for years because it's literally changed my career.
Yeah.
It really did. I attribute that moment, it was a huge moment for me, because then every time I went into these situations, I felt more confident. I wasn't going in with hat in hand saying, please, could you give me some feedback?
Mm-hmm.
Which is terrible. Like, don't give me, we could do the whole damn show on feedback. I will do it too. Don't make me. Hey, let's pull this bus over. Okay. So speaking of growing,
yep.
Technology is changing. We got your cryptos and your blockchains and your AIs and your whiz bangs and your NVIDIA stock, and like things are changing quickly, right? How do you stay on top of this stuff? And especially, what would be your advice for someone who's actually starting to get into this? By the time they learn something, like you mentioned, their rug could be pulled up under their feet. How do you stay on top of things yourself personally?
Yeah. I stay on top of things personally out of a sense of natural curiosity. And I think that helps a ton. I'm just interested in what's going on. You're reading the news, seeing what's going on in various spaces. AI is certainly a one that has got everyone kind of enamored right now. And I'm similarly, and will admit that I'm enamored by it. And not just enamored by it, but I like to dabble and play and try and figure it out, get my hands dirty with it a little bit. And people might think it's like, well, Zach, you're an executive, you're not hands on keyboard. Other people do that. Is that really necessary? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people let their, once they kind of get into management, they let their skills go. I think it's imperative for leaders to kind of stay up on things for a variety of reasons. Number one is it kind of sets a good example. It sets an expectation. If I can make time to learn and dabble and experiment with things, that makes it okay and expected for every member of my team to be doing the same thing.
Well, there's a difference between experimenting and like checking pull requests from.
That's correct. I'm not ready for production code.
Yeah, I'm not ready for production code. Yeah.
So correct. I would not be qualified to do that. I dabble in my own ways. But that's key. And I just it doesn't really matter what the subject is. I just kind of followed my curiosities. Like I said, I started off as a desktop support tech, and I really wanted to get into the server room because that's where the cool stuff is. That's where the big iron is. I wanted to work in a data center. So I looked for opportunities to do that and figure that out. Then this whole cloud thing came about. So I was like, well, what's that? At first I thought it was stupid and dumb and backwards, and then eventually realized I was wrong and I needed to embrace it and figure it out. So I better figure it out. So I got my hands dirty and figured it out. It's like, wow, this thing's really cool. I got really into, I got pulled into the cybersecurity world. When we started getting attacked and hacked, and how these guys getting in, and how I better protect our systems. How do I, defend our organization? We didn't have, security organizations back then. It was just IT, and you had to kind of figure this stuff out. So it's kind of chasing your curiosities, wondering how things get done. I think every one of you in this room has a natural curiosity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in tech. So I would just say, make sure that you continue to feed that and find ways to feed that. And it's not a matter of how much you've learned. But I think a good measurement is, how long has it been since I learned something new? That should be, you should say, is like, I learned something new last week or 6 months ago. I went through a new course or something like that. If the last thing you learned was 5-10 years ago, that's a problem. So that's a whole other trap.
Yeah, exactly. And so what would be your advice, though, for people specifically, like I said, so there's the learning piece of it, right? But where are you going for some of this knowledge? Is there websites that you like, books? What other recommendations would you have for people as they explore that curiosity? What's worked for you, and what maybe have you heard works for other people maybe on your team?
Sure. There's so many options nowadays. It's really great. A little bit depends on your personality and your budget. But I've done it all. I consider myself kind of a little bit of a voracious learner. I mean, you can go to school. You can go to go get a bachelor's degree, go get a master's degree. You can do all that kind of stuff. I've done that. You can take formal training courses online, on a website, on your phone nowadays. All that kind of stuff. I've done all that. I've read books. I've listened to podcasts. I've done audiobooks. I read Twitter. I read X very, very frequently. I follow various things on there to keep up on things and learn kind of what's moving and shaking. So social media in a variety of forms can be a good sense of that. LinkedIn to a lesser degree. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, my advice is exactly the same, is that, you have to curate your feed, right? Because I know some people are like, LinkedIn, it's cringe, and it's like Facebook, and it's like, well, it's because you should get rid of some people of your network. That dude, not Zach. You should add Zach. That you add value. I think curation is a big part of it too, because it can be just a shotgun of stuff, right? And that's tough to deal with. You've got to really curate your feeds to make sure you're getting that quality stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's just like, there's things that I just shared that I'm interested in. There's things that have come and gone that I'm not interested in. So not everything pops. So
no, no, it doesn't. Well, it's a good segue, because I want to talk about networking and the importance of it. So back to things that they don't teach in school. How to do interviews and how to network, and also how to sell yourself, I guess, a bit. You don't learn in school. I haven't seen a MBA course with a networking component to it as of yet. How important has networking been for you in your career, in your business, in your role?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can honestly say every job I've gotten has had a networking component to it. I can think of precisely 0 jobs I've ever gotten by just submitting an application and seeing what happens. It hasn't happened to me yet. It happens, but it hasn't happened to me. So every way in which I've moved around in my career has had a networking component to it. Probably the best example I can give of that is how I got to CHS, which was about 9 years ago now. And I was in the market looking. I had a job at the time, but I was dissatisfied with where I was at and looking for something new. And I heard of an opportunity at CHS through my network. Somebody said, "Hey, you should consider this." And it's like, okay, maybe I'll think about that. Then somebody else in my network said, "Hey, you should consider this." Like, well, I came from 2 places. Like, you know what? It's the thing. I don't know anybody that works there. And I even checked my network. It's like, nope, I don't know anyone that works there, but I know people that work there. So I started contacting those folks. It's like, hey, do you know more about this company or things like that? And this was a time in which, there was a lot of job applications for the job I'm getting. I mean, there was 80 applicants for it. And I know sometimes you know how that feels. It's like, I applied for something, there's 80 or 100 applicants for a job. How are they ever going to notice me? And I got an intern referral. And then I talked to somebody else. I got another intern referral. My resume on the top of the pile. All right. Still had to interview for the job. Still had to, impress the panel and impress the boss and impress the boss's boss, because there's 3 layers of interviews there at that point in time. But I got the job. And that's the thing, is sometimes you just need to get how do you get that interview? How do you turn an application from it? How do you convert from an application to an interview? Most of the time it's through networking, some sort of referral of some kind. So that can help a ton. On the subject of networking, there's if you haven't read Kurt's book, you should. But I'm going to give it there's a surprise in that book that I didn't necessarily see coming, that I really love. And if you don't mind, I'm going to digress for a second.
Oh, please.
It's
Plug my book for me.
There is, there's an aspect of it which is selling yourself and trying to put your name out there and doing the work, doing the legwork to network. But the message, there's a key message in there that was throughout the book that I saw, which is not necessarily about networking, but being a network for somebody else. That it paying it forward, being generous, taking that posture and that attitude, is really key. So when we think about networking, we think about our careers, we're trying to think about, what can I get? How can I advance? There's nothing wrong with having a healthy self-interest. I have that myself, but there is something magical about paying it forward and being a resource to other people that has this funny way of coming back around. And it's a joy as well, to go around and help people. So you might think, well, I'm early in my career, I don't really know anybody. Yeah, you do. So while you're thinking about your networking opportunities and what you should be doing about networking, I want you to be simultaneously thinking, like, how do I be a network for somebody else? Who do I know that somebody else that can benefit somebody else? How can I give some advice or pointers or point them in the right direction? Even if it's nothing more than, these are the mistakes I made. Maybe I haven't grasped to the point I want to, but I've made a few mistakes, and I can at least share those, right? So,
yeah. Well, and for those of you who may have not, but I strongly suggest it, is Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is
old school,
70 years old. It still works today. And if you haven't read it, my dad gave it to me when I was like 15. And, he says in the book, you can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. And so exactly to your point, is that you may think you're early in your career and you have nothing to offer, but you do. You really do. You're already ahead of other people. Just being here, your career has already moved ahead. So you do have those things to offer. And being able to go out and offer it freely and find opportunities to surrender that privilege or whichever you have to help other people will come back to you. It always does. It just does. And so for me, that's the thing, is like, there's some really great quotes out there, right? Like, your network is your net worth, right? I always love that one. Which is, again, goes back to, you're kind of an amalgamation of the people you surround yourself with, right? They always say, you're a version of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? This is why Zach and I look like we're family, we're brothers could be. It happens. We've melded together. We've spent so much time together. We have become the same person. So, but for you, Zach, like, how do you, over the years, how has your close network changed with how you've grown in your
in your role? Has it changed? Is it the same folks? Do they have different titles? Are they in different places? Has that changed for you at all?
It sure does change a lot, actually. Not all networking contacts are equal. I think, you're not going to be best friends with everybody you meet. Well, and they're not going to stick with you forever. Or at that moment, there might not be a way to exchange value, but maybe 5 years from now, right? Yeah, maybe down the road. And there's people that, just, as an introvert, it's helpful to know extroverted people that like you, because they can, help, bridge the gap at times a little bit. They can bring you to parties and introduce you to folks and things like that. And me and my brother, Zach. Yeah, exactly. Cuts down on a little bit of the extroversion work on my part, which is nice. So, salespeople are really good at that. Yeah. So it's good to network with salespepeople. It is. They'll drag you along. Yes. They'll try to sell you stuff. That's okay. But, there's a networking benefit to interacting with sales folks. They're naturals at it. So, yeah, I 100%, because that's where I learned to kind of come, because I started my career as a programmer and designer. And, I like that too. I like the idea of sitting in a dark room with a screen and like nobody would talk to me and I could just do stuff. But then I found later, like, it was really hard to do the things that I really wanted to do without other people. So I had to kind of get over that, But here's what I will tell you is that, you get another thing my dad would always say is you get 100% of what you don't ask for. So if you're not out telling people, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm looking for. If they don't know, they don't know. If you don't know that they know, they don't know. Okay. Everybody's busy. Everybody's, busy with their stuff. We're all busy, right? It's not to say that people don't care, but again, you're not always top of mind with people. So coming up with ways, and that's where social media is great, right? Like you can let people know this is kind of where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. Let's say, Zach, I am in the job hunt right now. A lot of people have always told me like, well, I'm really nervous to go to like LinkedIn and just say I'm looking for a job because that'll make me sound desperate. And we know desperate people, are not attractive. Right. So what's your advice for people? Like if I'm looking for a job, and I just listened to this goofy guy, Kurt, just say, I got to go and tell people I'm looking. What do I do? I think it's looking for options is a good thing to go after. And I think, one thing that's impressed me, about job seekers at times, it's like, I've been following you and I love what CHS stands for. I could really see myself working for CHS, and it's been, it's been on my watch list for a long time. And, I kind of the purpose resonates with me. And as I've seen the way a couple of you guys have kind of interacted on LinkedIn, you seem to, express the values that I believe in, talking about CHS, but that could be about any company. It is a lot more different than it's like, I don't know, I did a random search and keyword search and this popped up and I hit the apply button, right? Opportunities, job employers, they kind of want to know that you're really pursuing something. So, if you don't know what that is, you have to kind of make yourself familiar with your options and what's out there and what kind of speaks to you. As I've gone throughout my career, I've gotten more and more and more and more picky. I'm sure you probably have too. There's a lot of lame places to work. Sorry if you happen to work at one of those lame places. Go work for CHS. Talk to Kathy and Madison afterwards, or Excel. Yeah, there you go. So be choosy. So I think that, but I'm desperate. I need something. I got to pay the bills. I get that. I would say,
I gave us some hints to this, but I'll expound on it even further. I went to my initial education was a 2-year schooling on computer networking and enterprise system design. I learned, Cisco networking. I learned Microsoft operating systems and things of that sort. And I saw myself, I'm going to get a job as like a system architect. I'm going to design these cool enterprise systems. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
With zero experience, right? So 0 years of experience zero is a special number.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of move past that. So I took a contract, a very low paying contract, to do desktop installs, something that was well below my education level, but I knew how to do it. And was that beneath me? No. I had zero experience. I needed some professional experience. So it probably wasn't 4, 5, 6 years until I was really doing the level of job that I had been trained on. And by that point in time, the technology had already turned over once. So I had to learn all over again anyway. So it's, I will say, it's better to kind of look for you got your sights set on, I want this kind of a position because this is what's ideal for me. Better off to look, this is my ideal company. And is there anything there that I'm qualified for? And I can get in there and then maybe I can work my way up.
No, I think that's huge. Start with the company, their values, and then is there a space for me? Totally. You'll last a lot longer.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, Zach, I want to thank you.
And that concludes another episode of Schmidt List. Are you hungry for more insights and stories from the tech world? Visit us at schmidtconsulting.group and kurtschmidt.net. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review to help spread the inspiration. Join us next time for more groundbreaking conversations. Keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep listening to Schmidt List.